Hello and welcome to the Banker's Pre-Sibos video. My name is Brian Caplen, I'm editor of The Banker. I'm here with Jane Cooper, who's the Transactions Banking editor. And Jane, Sibos this year is in Dubai.
Yep.
It's obviously a huge meeting for the banking industry. What do you think are going to be the big issues discussed this year?
Well, there's just so many people going to be at Sibos. I mean, it's going to be thousands of people. Last year they said there were like 6,000 registered sort of delegates.
That was in Osaka last year.
Yeah, so if there's like 6,000 people, I mean, all those people aren't going to be talking about the same thing. Everybody's trying to get down to business. So what are the themes that apply to everyone? Well, I think regulations always, yeah, I think that's always going to be a big theme. And there seems to be a mood of acceptance now. I think like industry's gone through the sort of stages of grief or bereavement. You know, they've gone through sort of denial and anger and bargaining, and there's acceptance now, and it's how do you sort of pass that cost on? There's a big cost burden associated with it, so how do you price out the services and pass that cost on? And also banks are trying to help their clients, so they're helping their clients deal with the regulations.
All right, and I think you're going to write a piece on that subject. You know?
Yeah.
And now the thing about sort of helping customers, it's sort of a little bit like, you know, mum's apple pie. I mean, everybody says they believe in it.
It sounds a bit naff if you're not careful, you know. Well, the products are a given. I think the transaction banking industry's got to a point where the technology is advanced, that everyone can deliver the products. They've got the technology. So that's a given. So you've got this extra thing. It's like, now let's focus on the customer and the client. And it's quite a common theme in retail banking, you know, client centricity. So yeah, they all say it. They all say we put the client at the centre of everything we do. But really, do they? Well,
one of the issues with obviously serving the client is very much around the whole sort of data question. Actually, I'm chairing a panel on big data. And clearly you can't do a good job as a bank serving clients unless you really have a good grip on data about your customers. I mean, how do you think the banks are developing in those areas?
Well, I think it's a case of how the banks organise themselves. So the banks have customers in different divisions of the bank. So they will have data. Say you're primarily a trade finance customer.
Yeah, they tend to have it in silos.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the big problem, is organising yourself so that you've got the customer there and you can see the whole picture about the customer, but it's still very much so that everyone's sort of the separate teams in the bank are dealing with the customer separately, and you might have different sales teams who are sort of squabbling over whose client they belong to. So it's more about organising themselves within the bank.
All right, now this is obviously a wholesale service, but there's also a lot of discussion at Sibos about the retail area. And I know you're writing a piece about the current account, the humble current account.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, can there really be a revolution in current account banking?
Well, it's hard to make the current account sound interesting. You know, it's just such a dull, sort of ignored
But it is a basic
banking
building block of banking,
exactly.
Isn't it? And with the decline of the sort of markets business, it's become suddenly very relevant again.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a low interest in environment, so people can't make money from lending, and then you've got things like cost of regulation and a sort of need for transparency. So banks are sort of really breaking up all the products and services that they offer. So there's an element of looking at the current account. Can you actually price it? Can you make people pay for it? And if people are paying for it, then what service, what additional bells and whistles are you offering? But it's not just that as a product in itself. There's a few developments now where there's innovations in payments, where payments are coming directly to and from the current account. So in Europe, for example, there's My Bank, where people can go online shopping, and instead of paying by credit card, they can shop online through their online banking platform. So that money for e-commerce is coming directly from the current account. So there's no need for debit cards anymore. And there's, you know, potentially displacing networks like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal.
All right, and are Visa and MasterCard, are they fighting back?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're big companies, and what their advantage is they're a governance network. So with Visa and MasterCard, they're a recognised acceptance network. The brand is recognised. They have their technical standards, but they also have strong governance rules. So if you are a merchant accepting those payments, there are very strict rules and regulations, and sort of a governance structure that has developed over many years. So that is one of their advantages. And yeah, they're always coming up with the next big thing. They're working.
Okay, and then just quickly to finish off, because I mean we're in the UK. The UK has always had free banking, free current accounts.
It's not free. Who says it's free?
Well, okay, I know it's
no such
contentious.
thing as a free lunch.
Yes, so obviously what happens is it's free, but then you get charged for being overdrawn and so forth. Do you think there's any prospect the UK banks will actually move to a more transparent continental system where you actually have the payments up front?
Oh, I think we're already starting to see signs of that in the UK. There's some banks that have started to introduce current accounts that have extra features that are charging for it, and I think that's part of a trend. It's a recognition that the UK had to change. So the UK was one of the highest, had the highest proportion of sort of exceptions charges. So the current account was never free. You know, it was cross-subsidised by other things, and you know there was court cases years back. It was taken to the High Court that you can't be charging like this.
£25 for going £10 overdrawn.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the most sort of people at the lower end of the scale, shall we say, that were really sort of suffering from these charges. So there's been a recognition that the pricing structure has to change. And the UK is interesting because the Payments Council is going to be introducing a scheme, the current account switching scheme, and also there's going to be the mobile scheme as well. So mobile phone numbers are going to be linked with bank accounts, which enables person-to-person payments with a mobile phone directly from the bank account. So yeah, there's lots of things happening in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jane. Well, the humble current account, lots of interesting things taking place. There's whole discussions and a panel session at Sibos on the future of money. And we'll be priming that discussion hopefully with our reports in the September issue.